Caged Part 2, moving from horizontal caged to vertical caged. Let's see what it looks like. So in Part 1, we talked about this idea of horizontal cage. So I have my C, A at fret 3, G shape, ring finger at fret 8, E shape, pointer finger at fret 8, and D shape, pointer finger at fret 10. Now, one of the cool things about caged is that you can start to think about how each shape of chord matches up with the root notes that are within it. So let's take a look at it. So we've got the C. And it turns out that my two root notes, I've got a root note here on the A string, and I've got a root note here on the B string. Now, I'm not going to talk about what the actual letters of the notes are, because you can assume that these roots will still remain on the respective strings, the A string and the B string, no matter which fret you're playing this at. So once I convert this C shape into a bar chord, I've still got my root note here on the A string, and I've still got it here on the B string. Now, in a way, it's a shame really that this doesn't work out to be a B chord. It's kind of really, it would be really useful if it was, but it's a C. You know, the thing with it is that Baged, B-A-G-E-D, isn't quite as catchy an acronym as Caged. So I think that's what's going on there. But I would count the C chord as being the odd one out. Just kind of stick with this here. So we're going to think about the C chord. We're going to think of the most important root note in that pattern, in that shape, is actually going to be this one here on the B string. And the A string, we're going to actually think of the A string root as sort of belonging to actually the next chord in the sequence, which is the A shape. And the A shape, as we move to the A shape, we discover that the A shape here, it's got a root, of course, on the A string, and the other root note is actually on the G string. So it's got the root note on the A string, and then again, the other root note is on the G string. And the next shape in the sequence, the next form or shape in the caged sequence after A is the G shape. So let's go with this. I've got my G shape chord here, and it has the root on the G string, and it also has a root on the E string. And you can count either E string really for this. For my purposes, I tend to just kind of count the E strings as the same thing. So again, we've got the G shape, G form. I have a root note on the G string, and the other root note in this shape or form is on the E string. What's the next form in caged? After G, it would be E. And so here's my E shape, and I have my root notes turn out to be on the E string, of course, and then the next one happens to be on the D string. So I've got a note here that's there, and that's the other root there. And of course, yes, I do have another E string up here, but I'm counting those two E strings as essentially the same thing. Okay, so after E in the caged sequence, we have the chord of D. And lo and behold, there's our D string with the root. Here's our D form. And then the other root note within the D shape happens to be on the B string. So after D, it goes straight back to the beginning to a C shape. So really, in my opinion, the only thing to really remember with this is that when you're looking for the root notes within these chord shapes, and that's really important to know exactly which letter chord you're actually playing. That's got, you know, that's a big thing. If you think about, well, it's going to be this form, like an A form, it's going to have its root on the A string. If I think about the G form, it's going to have a root on the G string. E form, root on the E string, either one. And then D shape, root on the D string. And then the other one, the only odd one out then is going to be this C shape here. So its root note, it has a root note on the A string, but we've kind of, in my mind, I always assign that one, that A string, that kind of belongs to the A shape. So in a way, if you think to yourself, well, B equals C, then the C form, you can think of that C form having its root on the B string there, okay? So C shape has its root on the B string. That turns out to actually be the note C, which is probably where that C shape gets its name from, of course. The other root is on the name of the next form. So if you think caged, C-A-G-E-D, C-A, the other root note's on the A string. Now make your A shape, or A form, like this. Still a C chord, of course, because that note there on the A string, that's the note C. So that's the root note that gives it the C of the C chord. What's the next form in caged? Well, it goes C, A, G. So I can find the other root note on the G string. Now I make my G form, G shape. It's still a C chord. That note is C. And then the other root note that we have, well, if we're looking for the next form in caged, so it's going to go C, A, G, E. So E string. And that's a note C as well. So C and another C. Like that. Now we come up and make our E form. All right, we've got our E form here. The E strings will both have C's, the root notes. What's the next shape in the sequence? Well, we're looking at C, A, G, E, D. D string has the next chord. So the D string's the root. D form gives us another C shape, or C chord. And then the other root note in the D form is based on the B string, which means that we can build another C form up here. Like that. So looking at it from a vertical point of view, I'm just going to start here around about fret 5. I've got I start with my E string. And so my major shape, when I'm thinking about a root note that's on the E string, it's going to be an E bar form like that. When I want to make a major chord on the A string with the root on the A string, it's going to be an A major shape. Like that. And then when I want to make myself, a root note on the D string here, the third one down, it's going to be some form of D. So to make a major chord anywhere on the D string, I need to use a D shape. And I can go down here to the G string. Anytime I want to make a chord that has its root note on the G string, a major chord, I'll just use my G shape. And I think of that as the root note. Okay. And then finally, when I get to the B string, I can make a major chord with a B string root note anywhere. And I can think of it like this. Well, there we go. I'm actually not going to use my pointer finger. I'm going to put my middle finger there and then build that C shape like that. Okay, now why is this important? Why is it useful? Well, it's because then once you start to think about playing in particular keys and thinking about this very popular, so say for instance in a blues or a lot of country songs or something like that, the principal chords in the key and then therefore in the song will actually be the first chord of the key, the fourth chord of the key, and the fifth chord of the key. And it works out that these chords are kind of arranged, well, the strings are actually arranged vertically like that. So say, for instance, I was in the key of A. Well, I would have the A string. I would have a D string then. So I've got my A chord here. And then I would play myself a D chord. And then my fifth chord would be an E chord. So I'd have A, B, C. A is number 1, B and C is 2 and 3. D is number 4, E is number 5. So A, D, and E. And so we've got tons of songs, loads and loads of songs that use those three principal chords. And then, of course, now that you know the bar chords, you can actually play that kind of 1-4-5 arrangement anywhere along the neck. So I'm going to play in the dreaded key of C sharp major. And you think to yourself, C sharp major? I don't know anything about C sharp major. Well, we can just kind of use the letters, and we're going to think to ourselves, right, I need to use C sharp as number 1. I'm going to use D sharp as number 2. We'd have E sharp as number 3. And then we'd have F sharp's number 4. And G sharp is number 5. And so all I need to think about is, well, if I know that coming out on the A string, C sharp is at fret 4, you think C is at fret 3, C sharp's going to be at fret 4. I'll use myself an A shape there, and there's my C sharp chord. Bingo. And I want to go to F sharp next, so I'm just going to come down here to the D, because I know that the D string is going to be the 4th chord. A to D is 4, A, B, C, D. So if I'm going up 4 from C sharp, I'll just come down to the D string. And then if I want to go to the 5 chord, all I'm going to need to do is just come up to this E string, D to E string. Like that. So here, just like when we were in the open chords, so those 3 chords will work fine. And again, you can do this. This trick works anywhere on all of the 12 different frets. Those 3 shapes, your A shape, your D shape, and your E shape, will give you a 1-4-5. Okay. This trick also works on the D string, the G string, and the A string. If I'm out here at fret 4 on the D string, I've got the note F sharp. So if I make my D major bar chord, that gives me an F sharp major chord. And then I've got F sharp, A sharp, B, that's the 4th chord. Go to the G string here, and there's my B. And then if I want to go up one more, B to C sharp, turns out the A string has got the C sharp on it, fret 4. All right. And why does this work? Well, good. Remember, we've got the D string, anything based along the D string, and then anything, we're thinking about something based on the G string, and then we're thinking about something based on the A string. So I've got D string, miss out E, F, G string is number 4, A is number 5. So anything on the D string, anything on the G string, anything on the A string. Okay, these will work. And you've got let's look at the 3rd set of these. So imagine I was on the G string now. And so again, I need to find the 4th and 5th notes up from G. So I'd go G, A, B, C, and D. So if I start with my G shape here, let me do this. Let's go here for something for giggles. We'll do it at fret 3, which gives me a chord of B flat major, because there's B flat at fret 3 on the G string. Now when I want to go into my C shape here, I have to actually think about going to the B string, but I kind of need to, every time I cross from the G string to the B string, I have to kind of add 1 fret. So instead of going directly down like I was doing before, like this, everything at fret 3, you can hear this doesn't sound quite right. It should be 1, 4, 5, like that. Now, it's not actually that bad though, because if I just think about where my pointer finger is at fret 3, keep it at fret 3, transition to your C chord, or C shape I should say, and your middle finger has made that shift up for you to fret 4. And that's the B string at fret 4, so that gives us the next root note for the 4th chord. And then when I want to transition to the 5 chord, the 5 chord is going to be a D shape on the D string. So I'd have my G shape, C shape. Like that. And so that's probably enough to be getting on with for now. So we're thinking about turning these caged shapes from this horizontal thing where they're all interdependent on each other. And instead of thinking of them just like that, that they're all related to each other like that, you can also start thinking of them as each form is related to a parent string, or the root note is based on a string, and therefore that shape or that form of the chord belongs to that root, to that string. So again, we've got E string, E shape, A string, A shape, D string, D shape, G string, G shape, and B string is the C shape. And then once you start thinking about groups of 3 strings like this, so my A string, D string, and E string, well, that's 1. D is number 4, E is number 5. So I can use those 3 shapes. When I'm thinking about my D string, I've got D is 1, G is 4, A is 5. So D shape, G shape, A shape. You can use those in a song. If I'm on the G string here, I'm on the G string. I've got to bounce up 1 fret when I cross to the B string to make it a C. And then D would be number 5. So I can use G shape. Don't change the first finger. Drop straight into that C shape. And there's my D shape like that. And again, this is kind of why so this is why so many songs, of course, are using those 3 open shapes. And imagine if you just kind of moved them up a bit. So you'd have that. So, okay, thanks for watching. Take care.